Hey everyone, welcome back to AI.Divine Insights. Today, we're going deep, like really deep.
All right, get ready because we're about to jump into some serious drama today. Biblical drama. We're talking plagues of Egypt.
Plagues of Egypt, that's right.
Exodus chapters 9 and 10, where things get, well, pretty intense. We're talking plagues of livestock, boils, hail, locusts, you name it, even darkness.
Yeah.
Darkness you can feel.
We're talking like carefully constructed narrative here. This wasn't just like random disasters.
Right.
Each plague seems to target like a very specific element of Egyptian society. And even more interestingly, their belief system.
Okay, so we're working with excerpts from the New King James Version.
Okay.
And the language it's intense, it's vivid. It really paints a picture. So our mission today is to uncover what these plagues tell us about power, faith, and this clash between the God of the Israelites and the Egyptian pantheon.
Right.
Like we're going beyond just the special effects here.
Yeah.
We're looking at a struggle for freedom and maybe even the human relationship with the divine. Starting with plague number 5, the pestilence on livestock.
Okay.
Exodus states, all the livestock of Egypt died, but of the livestock of the children of Israel, not one died. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating how this plague like immediately disrupts a vital part of the Egyptian economy and their belief system. Think about it,
Yeah.
Like many of their gods were depicted with animal heads. Livestock was like central to their culture, their livelihood, even their spiritual landscape.
So it's not just like an economic hit. It's really shaking their understanding of the world, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But even after this, Pharaoh's heart remains hardened. And, I'm kind of struggling with this idea of a hardened heart.
Yeah.
If Pharaoh had free will, why wouldn't he relent after seeing, such devastation?
Yeah. That's a question that has puzzled scholars, for centuries,
Right.
Some argue this was God's will, a way to showcase his power. Others believe that Pharaoh's initial resistance made him more susceptible to further hardening, almost
Yeah.
like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Oh, interesting.
But it definitely raises questions about the nature of free will versus divine intervention.
Right.
It's one of the most debated aspects of this story, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Then comes the 6th plague,
Boils.
boils. Exodus describes it as fine dust in all the land of Egypt, causing boils that break out in sores on man and beast. And, even the magicians who initially replicated some of the earlier plagues were afflicted.
Exactly. Even those who thought they could match God's power are struck down.
Yeah.
This emphasizes the severity of this plague and the limitations of their own magic.
Right. So it seems like the plagues are becoming more personal, like targeting the Egyptians directly. First their livelihood, now their health. It's like the stakes are getting higher with each plague.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And this escalation, it continues with the 7th plague, hail.
Okay.
Exodus says, fire darted to the ground, and the Lord rained hail on the land of Egypt. And you got to remember, this wasn't just like bad weather.
Right.
This was a direct attack on Ra, the sun god.
Wow. I hadn't thought about it like that.
Yeah, imagine the terror of the Egyptians as fire, a symbol of their god's power, is raining down from the sky.
Right.
Talk about a challenge to their worldview.
It's like their gods are failing to protect them, right?
Right.
It does make you wonder, though, amidst all this devastation, the land of Goshen, where the Israelites lived, was spared from the hail. What do you make of that?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a powerful symbol of God's protection and the distinction he's drawing between the Israelites and the Egyptians. The line in the sand is pretty clear at this point.
Right.
Both literally and figuratively.
So we've got livestock dying, people covered in boils, a hailstorm of fire. It's a bad week in Egypt for sure. Yeah.
Do you think Pharaoh is starting to get the message at this point?
Well, I mean, he does express remorse after the hail,
Okay.
admitting the Lord is righteous and my people and I are wicked.
Right.
But even this confession, it seems temporary.
Yeah, because after each plague subsides, Exodus says Pharaoh's heart hardens again.
Right.
It's like this cycle of fear, repentance, and then bam, right back to stubbornness.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
And that that brings us to the eighth plague, a plague of locusts, so dense they covered the face of the whole earth so that the land was darkened, and they ate every herb of the land.
Wow.
Yeah.
Imagine the sheer, like, terror of that, seeing a swarm of locusts, that massive, like, what would that even be like?
Yeah, I mean, Exodus emphasizes the severity, stating there had never been such locusts before, nor would there be any like them again.
That's some serious locust action.
Yeah. Really drives home the point that that there are consequences to defying God.
Right. And it seems to have impacted even Pharaoh's court.
Really?
You know, his servants plead with him, saying, "How long shall this man be a snare to us? Let the men go, that they may serve the Lord their God. Do you not yet know that Egypt is destroyed?"
Wow. So even Pharaoh's inner circle is feeling the pressure.
Yeah.
I mean, things must be getting pretty desperate for his advisors to like speak up like that.
Yes. This highlights the growing tension within Egypt itself. Even Pharaoh's advisors are recognizing the dire situation and urging him to relent.
Yeah.
But as we know, Pharaoh is still clinging to power. He's willing to let the men go,
Yeah.
but he wants to keep the women and children as collateral.
He's trying to bargain with God. It's
Yeah.
like he's still not grasping the magnitude of the situation.
Yeah, it seems he's still operating from a place of ego and control. He's trying to dictate the terms of the Israelites' release rather than submitting to God's will.
Right.
But this just sets the stage for even more dramatic events to come.
And that brings us to the ninth plague. This is one that really captures the imagination, darkness. Exodus says there was thick darkness in all the land of Egypt 3 days. And it's not just any darkness. This is darkness which may even be felt.
Yeah, it's palpable. This darkness wasn't simply the absence of light. It was an oppressive presence that would have been terrifying to experience. It's
Yeah.
almost as if the darkness itself became an entity, like a manifestation of God's power.
Wow, it's hard to even wrap my head around that. But there's another detail here. It says all the children of Israel had light in their dwellings. So while Egypt is shrouded in darkness, the Israelites have light. It's like this line between those who follow God and those who don't is even more stark now, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It underscores the idea that God is not uh, simply unleashing like indiscriminate chaos,
Right.
but is acting with purpose and intention.
Right.
The darkness is a tangible representation of the division between the Egyptians and the Israelites.
So it's both a punishment and a sign. It's a way of making his presence and his will undeniably clear.
Exactly. It's about demonstrating power and faithfulness to his people.
Right.
It's a powerful message to both sides.
We left off, with Egypt just swallowed by this like tangible darkness.
Yeah.
This oppressive feeling that lasted for 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
And it really sets the stage for the 10th and final plague, which hits hard on a whole different level.
This final plague, it targets the most vulnerable members of Egyptian society, their firstborn sons.
Yeah.
It strikes at the very heart of their family structure, their hopes for the future, their sense of security.
Exodus states, from the firstborn son of Pharaoh who sits on his throne to the firstborn son of the female servant who is behind the handmill.
Right.
Like no one is exempt from this plague.
Right.
Not even Pharaoh's own family.
Mm-hmm.
It's a chilling image.
Yeah.
And a devastating one. I mean, this plague really forces us to confront some tough questions. Like how do we reconcile the idea of a just and merciful God with the death of innocent children? This is something that scholars and theologians have grappled with for centuries.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder what are we even supposed to take away from this?
I mean, there are many interpretations, of course.
Yeah.
Some focus on the idea of collective responsibility. Arguing that the Egyptians as a whole were complicit in oppression of the Israelites.
Hmm.
Others emphasize the symbolic nature of the plague, seeing it as a foreshadowing of the sacrifice of Jesus in the Christian tradition.
There's also that that stark contrast between the fate of the Egyptian firstborns and the safety of the Israelite firstborns.
Right.
The Israelites were uh, instructed to sacrifice a lamb and mark their doorposts with its blood, and this act was supposed to ensure the angel of death would pass over their homes. I mean, it's a powerful image, but it also raises questions about choice and consequence.
Right. It highlights the importance of faith and obedience,
Hmm.
even when, the commands seem difficult to understand. But even with this forewarning and a chance to protect their firstborns, some Egyptians, still ignored the message.
Wow.
This act of defiance, it really emphasizes the theme of free will that,
Yeah.
that runs throughout the story.
Right.
Even when confronted with undeniable signs and wonders, they held on to their beliefs
Yeah.
and tragically, suffered the consequences.
It's a reminder that we always have a choice, but those choices can have profound and lasting repercussions even today.
Right.
The text describes the aftermath. There was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where there was not one dead.
Wow.
This wasn't just personal loss for individual families. It was a collective trauma that would have, reverberated throughout their society.
Yeah.
And it was in this moment of immense grief and vulnerability that Pharaoh finally relented.
Yeah.
He called for Moses and Aaron and told them to leave.
Right.
I mean, it was a moment of surrender,
Yeah.
both tragic and transformative. I mean, we see the terrible cost of Pharaoh's defiance,
Hmm.
but at the same time, it opens the door for the Israelites' liberation.
Right.
It took the death of his own firstborn son. But Pharaoh finally, recognized the power of the God of Israel.
Yeah.
This exodus from Egypt is more than just leaving. It's the beginning of their journey toward the promised land,
Okay.
which of course is a whole other story.
Right.
We've covered a lot of ground, explored the escalating intensity of the plagues, the idea of Pharaoh's hardening heart and the power of belief, both in God and in the Egyptian pantheon. But before we wrap up, let's talk about the purpose of these plagues.
Yeah.
Like why did God send them?
Right.
What was the message?
That's a question worth exploring, isn't it? I mean, on one level, it's about demonstrating God's power to Pharaoh and the Egyptians.
Mm-hmm.
Forcing them to acknowledge him as the one true God.
Right.
Each plague targeted a specific deity or element of the Egyptian belief system, systematically undermining their sense of order and control.
It was a challenge to their entire worldview.
Right.
Their gods offered no protection against these plagues. It was like a cosmic showdown. And in the end, the God of Israel emerged victorious.
Right.
But it wasn't just about divine ego. It was about liberation. The plagues were a tool to pave the way for the Israelites' freedom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Their self-determination.
Yeah, their freedom.
It shows how even in ancient times, dramatic upheavals could lead to breaking free from oppression.
Yeah.
The plagues were they were catalysts for change,
Yeah.
and that struggle for freedom, both on an individual and collective level, is a theme that still resonates today.
Right.
I mean, we see it in social justice movements, political revolutions, even personal journeys of self-discovery.
Yeah.
This idea of breaking free from constraints and creating a better future is powerful. It takes courage, it takes faith, and a willingness to challenge the status quo. Just like Moses and the Israelites did.
Right.
We've examined the plagues from a historical and theological perspective.
Right.
But it's fascinating to imagine how we would interpret these events if they happen today. Like,
Right.
would we see them as divine intervention, natural disasters, mass hysteria?
Yeah.
Our modern understanding of of science and psychology would definitely shape our perception. You know, we might look for rational explanations, attributing the plagues to environmental factors or outbreaks of disease.
Right, yeah.
But could we truly explain the precision and timing of these plagues? You know, the way they targeted the Egyptians while sparing the Israelites.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, even with all our scientific advancements, are there some things we just can't fully explain?
Yeah, and that's why these ancient texts continue to hold our attention. You know, they challenge our assumptions and invite us to consider the limits of our understanding.
Right.
You know, they create a space for dialogue between faith and reason.
You know, these chapters from Exodus are just one part of a much bigger story.
Yeah.
There are layers of meaning to unpack, and these stories continue to resonate today. So we've been unpacking these plagues, and it's clear that they weren't just isolated incidents.
Right.
They were like carefully orchestrated. Each one, building on the last, and each one challenging the very foundation of Egyptian society.
It's like a step-by-step dismantling of their worldview.
Yeah.
Livestock, the foundation of their economy.
Right.
Tied to their gods, struck down, their bodies afflicted with boils. Then the heavens themselves,
Right.
with hail and fire, challenging the power of Ra, the sun god.
It's almost like a systematic attack on their belief system.
Exactly. And then comes the darkness, a darkness so profound, it was a physical presence. Imagine the psychological impact of that on a people who worship the sun.
It makes you think about how our own beliefs would be challenged.
Right.
If we experience something like that. Would we hold on to our faith, or would we question everything?
It's a powerful thought experiment.
Yeah.
But the plagues weren't just about destruction, They were about liberation, a way to pave the path for the Israelites' freedom.
And that's a key takeaway, isn't it?
Right.
That sometimes dramatic events, even tragic ones, can be catalysts for change. Whether it's a personal struggle, a social movement, or even a global shift.
Right.
Sometimes things have to fall apart before they can be rebuilt.
And the story of the plagues reminds us that these transformations often require courage and faith.
Yeah.
The Israelites had to trust that God was with them, even when surrounded by darkness and death.
And that's a pretty powerful message for us today, don't you think?
Absolutely.
We've all faced our own personal plagues, those moments where everything seems to be falling apart.
Right.
But maybe, just maybe, those moments are opportunities for growth, for liberation, and for a chance to rebuild something even stronger.
That's a great point. These ancient stories, while rooted in a specific time and place, still resonate with our own experiences.
Right.
They offer timeless wisdom about faith, courage, and the possibility of transformation, even in the face of overwhelming adversity.
So if you find yourself going through a plague of your own, remember the story of Exodus. Remember the power of faith and the possibility of liberation, and maybe, just maybe, you'll emerge from the darkness stronger and more resilient than ever before.
And keep exploring, keep asking questions, keep diving deep into the stories and ideas that challenge you to think differently. Who knows what other nuggets of wisdom you'll uncover.
That's it for our deep dive into the plagues of Egypt.
Yeah.
But remember, this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
There are so many more layers to this story, so much more to explore in the book of Exodus and beyond.
Absolutely.
So keep digging, keep questioning, and until next time, keep learning. Also, please like and subscribe to AI.DivineInsights for daily podcast episodes.
See you next time.